Thanks, Peter. I will go through the session quickly so that you can all go home quickly. So, I am a medical doctor and started working with the government sector for 4 years. Then I realized that private sector is the first source of care for curative and in any other illnesses. It's the nearest to the development consumer group that we want to reach. So I've moved on to the private sector in the sense of starting with NGOs, but always been interested in healthcare inclusive business models over the last 11 or 12 years. And being based in South Asia, the developed economies, there are always things which I have worked on in the last 10 years. It's what either you can call it results-based financing, some people call it outcomes investing, some people call it output-based payments. And we have all done that in India, as some of the people have shared in education, but in health also, we have been doing that for the last 10 years. So as a development impact bond, it was interesting. It's just for the last 6 months only, we started working on it and how we can use that as a funding or a procurement mechanism to roll out or expand programs. I'll start my, in a sense, discussion through maybe two assumptions. Usually when people work in development field or development agendas, people think scale up would be done by the government if we are to reach to the poor, to whom we have a kind of responsibility towards, poor or marginalized groups and so on. First assumption. Second assumption, government will have resources, is always, we will be able to create resources, whether it's swap, which was discussed earlier, or pooled sector resources, government will always have resources. Two assumptions. I will now share three trivias to challenge that assumption. First one is Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam. Universal health coverage. They have been piloting for the last 11 years. They are the countries with the highest or maximum number of universal healthcare coverage, covered population. There is still no decrease in out-of-pocket expenses. Persistently out-of-pocket expenses in these countries have been 40 to 50%, even when you have universal health coverage. Second trivia, 1951 to 1991, India had mostly government sector providing services. 1992 to 2012, the decrease in newborn mortality rate or decrease in infant mortality rate or decrease in child mortality rate doubled in progress than we had in 1951 to 1991. In last 20 years, it was more than 1951 to 1991. What happened in 1991? India had economic reforms. The sector was thrown open to private sector. Last, and this is where I think some of the venture capitalists or equity people might also work. Since recession, last recession that we went through, the only industry which has been giving persistent 8 to 9% returns is the healthcare industry. Only industry which has been giving persistently 8 to 9% returns since recession 2007, 2008 is the healthcare industry. So again, does the government has resources or government use resources which are created by the private sector? Second, private sector has the ability to go to scale. Government can not or may not be able to go to scale always. Going to talk in the sense of context we're trying to put is Rajasthan again and improve newborn, maternal and child health and including family planning in it. Why the social issue? Of course, MDG 4 and 5, their high maternal mortality, high infant mortality, risk of death during the neonatal period or during the first 2 days itself after birth, that carries nearly 60 to 70% of infant mortality rates or 50% of the child mortality rate. The risk during the neonatal period is actually 70 times. So if you can take care of the newborn during the first 2 days after delivery, you have created a lot of impact that you wanted to have within infant mortality rates. We all know family planning. I mean, Futures Group has been leading it all over the world. Why investing in family planning makes a lot of sense. In fact, we have also done climate change models. We've also, analyzed population control. How does that affect climate change? So it averts 40% maternal deaths and it averts 10% of childhood deaths. In Rajasthan, if you want to talk about, someone also shared 60% of girls get married before 18 years in The morning presentation reported figure which comes out from the government is 40%. High fertility rates in Rajasthan, about 13% unmet need. This translates to about 2 million women in Rajasthan only requiring, if you talk about family planning unmet need. And which is high among adolescents and young married couples because as a social norm, they are not allowed to access without an elderly person supporting it when they want to access any family planning or even go to the doctor, they have to be supported by an elderly person. In a limiting method environment, sterilization accounting 77%, family planning is supposed to be free, provided by the government. Again, sterilization accounting 77%. Private sector not engaged, and there is limited provision of method choices. So what role can private sector play? The large number of induced abortions, which are basically unsafe, and existing quality assurance mechanisms. You might have deliveries happening, but are you able to reach out to those requiring emergency obstetric care? So this is inconsistent and of poor quality within the government settings, whether it's newborn care, EMOC is emergency obstetric care, family planning, or abortion services. So why is a new financing model needed? We have been working, as I said, on results-based financing, output-based payments, outcomes investing, and so on. One is rapid scale-up and flexibility. Even in results-based financing, you may not have a rapid scale-up and flexibility because you are still monitored on sometimes on your outputs, which if there have been good donors, and it depends on country level also, you can change out log frames every year or annual reviews. During annual reviews, you can change a log frame and have a new output. But whether that flexibility is always available, that again is a question. Within a 1 year period, are you able to change your outputs? High entry cost, but a sustained commercial model. So there are healthcare inclusive business models which venture capitalists are currently investing into. There's primary healthcare models which, for example, for safe deliveries, which people have been investing for the last 5 or 6 years, at least in India and Bangladesh, in the sense of how we can increase accessibility to primary healthcare, whether it's Sequoia Capital or Avishkar or Acumen Funds. These are venture capitalists who are interested, and these are, again, proven models. So, I mean, they have a herd mentality, venture capitalists, something which is already proven, they like to go there. So, importance of outcomes and impact versus process and output. I mean, we already had this discussion. Expand supply points. So if you're talking about an environment for family planning, if you leave it to the government, maybe you'll have only sterilization happening continuously because they may not have the infrastructure or the ability to either launch new methods, injectables, implants, IUDs, and increase supply points. There's potential for PPPs. When impact investors come in, they are not interested in government implementing stuff. They are interested in private sector because private sector can prove results quickly, and it's more reliable for them to invest in private sector rather than government services, which may take up time or which might have resource deficient areas. Because decentralization is happening, devolution is happening everywhere. More and more decision making is going down to the county level or to the district level in India, or to the state level, and it is difficult, and you have to adapt to each county or region. It all depends on how good that particular development commissioner in that particular county is in working. There's an initial setup cost, which everybody discussed, and investor is able to put in. A rural-urban bias. In India, programs for condom social marketing have been happening for 20 years now. Rural population is around 80%, urban population is 20%. Condom market is double the size in urban areas as compared to rural areas. So even when rural population is 80%, condom market is half. Nobody likes to go there because there is no market creation happening for condoms or for other pills method in rural areas. Somebody needs to invest in market development or market creation to create or to correct that bias. This FMCG supply chain, again, corporations or private companies are having a conscience now. Somebody started BOP, somebody said the new karma is going down to the poor or to the less than, it may not be always so poor, but less than 60% of the bottom of pyramid. Again, people are interested in reaching out to the market because urban market is saturated. And again, mainstreaming. So how can we leverage that commercial sector reach for mainstreaming this reproductive, maternal, newborn, child health, adolescent health practices? We are We have fun with acronyms in development world. It started 20 years ago. Currently, the latest one is RMNCH plus A, which is reproductive, maternal, newborn, child health, plus adolescent. Family planning is a preventive health service. Again, it's a slow-moving good. You need push. It's very difficult to get a pull or demand for it. It's a preventive health service. People will invest into it, or people will go for it only if there's somebody providing either free or there's a demand creation kind of campaigns happening. This untapped market with high entry cost, as I said, because people are interested. Private sector is already there. It is very unregulated. It is kind of only, it is still, I mean, one of the primary care service providers, but it's not recognized and it's not tapped into. And there's always a cost of hospital if you want to make them quality conscious. They might want to expand, they might want equipments which are required. For example, we need a resuscitator in newborn care. They may not have it. They may be currently doing it by a tube, which is just a state-of-the-art equipment depending on innovation that they develop locally, but you need a resuscitator and that equipment needs to happen. GE Healthcare is investing into India in developing newborn thermoregulatory models or heat kind of producing to the newborn care, and also for newborn resuscitator models. So again, can we latch on to this interest of commercial sector enterprise and have a total market approach? You have a private sector which is reaching down to the market. You have a commercial sector. You have government to provide services for the poor. Can you have a total market approach in which you work with the three sectors with investing into the middle sector market creation, quality services at affordable pricing? Can we invest into it? So this is what we decide. In the sense, this is a theory of chain that we propose. I mean, people have been having discussion on this, or results chain that we've been proposing. So you have a TA and a financial cost as an input level. Then you have a franchise model or a social franchise model in which you work along with kind of networking private providers into different kind of branded, affordable, or inclusive business models. And you have outreach. So when you work with these private sector providers, they are also interested in going to the public sector to provide services, provided there is a PPP mechanism of reimbursing them for the services that they provide. They would like to go in, because public sector has developed this ivory towers of primary healthcare center, but nobody is there, or the infrastructure equipment is not there. And private sector would like to go there and provide service, provided they have a kind of PPP or a partnership developed for that. Similarly for products, I mean, commercial market players are wanting to reach out into rural areas, but can we have subsidized or social marketing demand creation for products? I'll come into what kind of products we can have. And it can be outlets also. So DFID, I think in India are having now going to the new model of financing in which they have these three: CSR, women-owned businesses, and private sector capacity building. And these kind of models in which you work with fancy shops which provide bindis, which people use, or even accessories for, in the sense of women accessories. So can you work along with them to mainstream all these family planning products and maternal health products like sanitary napkins and so on? Quality assurance is a big thing, and working on demand creation and training and supervision. So you have this results framework, and then you have on the outputs level, you can have additional family planning users, you can have improved newborn care to be measured at a time of birth, you can have these kind of indices, increased institutional deliveries, and coming up from the four, in the sense, inputs that we provided. At the outcomes level, you can have maternal deaths averted. It's easy to calculate infant mortality rate and maternal mortality ratio. Government is already calculating that on a 2-yearly level through the sample registration survey that they do. So these are independent mechanisms of verifying also that you already have this available of infant mortality rate and maternal mortality ratio indices. And then unsafe abortions averted. Of course, happiness is impact, or what kind of happiness we can achieve. One is dialysis, which is recognized globally. You can have dialysis at low cost, you can have economic benefits, and you can have a market reshaped through a total market approach in which you can increase the number of people users and decrease, for example, sterilization users overall. So if 70% is sterilization currently, increase users of family planning, sterilization will come down to 60% or 50%. Can we work on this to create more spacing method use? So as I said, impact indicators, avert maternal deaths, MMR trends, avert infant deaths, these are all readily available within the government settings. So you can independently verify them also. And payment triggers can be outcome also. Increase in CPR, increase additional couple years through whatever services that you provide, number of women provided institutional deliveries, number of additional users by project sites, number of women provided safe abortion services. It gives you flexibility. So when you are trying to have service delivery sites expansion, for example, or supply point chain expansion, it gives you flexibility in what kind of model that you want to propose. Because in the end, we just want to reach this outcomes level. And if you have this kind of flexibility, you can have franchising, you can have demand-side financing of PPP models, you can have fixed-day services in which private sector comes in to provide services at public facilities. You can have the other way around, private sector wanting to have some kind of, so Dunkin' Donuts or everybody else, when they start in an area, they give 1 month of free burgers or free donuts. Can we have something like this? Launching this branded network of, there's a new branded network, quality at affordable pricing. Here is something like a fixed day service at private facility. It will launch the network also. It will launch the new method, IUD or injectable also, and then people can continue over a period of time. And of course, helpline to support all the either service to encourage people to increase information. It can also be for following up on clients. So if you get client details, the helpline can be used for following up on clients and making them go for continuous use. Or even for Johnson & Johnson is now using, for example, helplines to baby centers, sending out SMSs for baby center that, look, this is what you require this week, or this is what your checkup is required this month. And they are piloting it in Rajasthan also through SMS and helpline. These are the kind of products that you can invest in. It can be family planning, condoms, pills, emergency contraceptives. It can also be medical abortion kits. It can be injectable contraceptives. Sanitary napkins is a big draw for adolescents. Once you launched sanitary napkin marketing, suddenly adolescents had a big kind of demand for it. And they started accessing these women-owned business and entrepreneurs, whom we had trained them for referring clients in case they require emergency pills or OC pills also. So once you launch sanitary napkins, for example, this is what we learned through, it is a big draw for reaching out to young couples or adolescents, especially in an area where they do not have access to, or whatever they have is costlier, of Procter & Gamble and so on. Zinc, ORS, clean delivery kits. Even in institutional deliveries, now clean delivery kits are being promoted in the sense of you can have a delivery kit already either, in fact, in Africa, people come along with clean delivery kit to the institution. This is what is happening in Africa. In India, we still need to have we can have clean delivery kits inside the hospital, and then the hospital providing or putting it into the cost of service for those deliveries. And then you can have post-delivery products for mothers. Iron, folic acid, supplementary nutrition. GlaxoSmithKline is now working with us, for example, for motherholics. And through community-based entrepreneurs, they want to reach out or tap into these markets, as I said, reaching out to the BOP markets for motherholics. So again, there's a flexibility of making or giving access to supplementary nutrition or iron, folic acid, or even fortified foods for reaching out to these newer markets. Established through traditional outlets or non-traditional outlets, as I said, and linkages with different groups. Strengthening the social marketing skills or marketing skills. And these are FMCG supply chain, just orient them on what are the products and RMCH offerings and engage the commercial sector. Capacity building, quality assurance, we all know that. Can we work on that for improving quality assurance at the community level, at the facility level? And then, of course, generate 360-degree campaigns for market creation. You have smart couples, in which you work interpersonal counseling through the community-based entrepreneurs. You have smart providers. One of the biggest barrier for clinical service is actually the provider. And this is what has come out with many, research in family planning. They will go for sterilization or over-the-counter drugs. They will not provide injectable or IUCDs because the biggest myths are between the service providers themselves. Doctors don't provide IUCDs, and I'm sorry to share because I'm a doctor also. They won't offer because it's time-consuming and there's no incentive to them for providing it. And then also, can we have smart community in sense of e-shows or folk theater shows, launching them, and similarly market town activities for promotion, and the environment, mass media, how can you leverage radio and television? So simple 4-pronged approach for tapping into the private market. What's the value of DRIB now? There's incentive, people have discussed this in the morning also, there's incentive to focus on measuring and achieving outcomes. You have an incentive now because you get paid on achieving outcomes. There's quick wins and attribution. Attribution is something where DFID is always, or donors are always looking for. So you can have attribution immediately if you are intent on achieving or measuring those outcomes also. Accountability is something which it's inbuilt. It tackles the unpredictability of funding in the sense that there's an investor which puts money into it and there's an upfront finance readily available. There's a point about this last point, mobilize CSR and local suppliers. India has this 2% Companies Act which is coming in. So there's a big there's a big investor community or private sector philanthropic investors community or high network individuals who are wanting to invest. They don't know the legitimate procurement mechanism of how to or where to invest. But they would like to invest in maternal health, improve newborn care. It can be shared value concept also. When I was in PSI, we worked on a program in which Suzlon, which was a wind power company, wanted to establish their wind turbines. But the villagers were not kind of believing in it and they were not giving them approval. So they invested into a CSR program for, let's have a primary healthcare program, we'll fund you for $80,000 for 3 years. Start with clinics, and once you the clinics get recognized by the community as Suzlon Foundation's clinics, the 4th year they will start then giving them approval and work along with them why wind turbines are good, why solar energy or wind energy is always more efficient. And that was the way that they also gained more business out of it. So again, there is a big community of commercial sector investors, and government also has said 2% of your profits should go into CSR ventures. And government is saying you have to invest in it. And it's a big one. Some people say it's $1 billion market, some people it's $2 billion market. It's a big market out there for all when this Company Acts, 2% Company Acts bill comes into place. And of course with DIB, some people say it's a challenge to work with multiple stakeholders, but I think it's always an advantage. With a DIB, you can always play with multiple stakeholders because in the end, you have to achieve the outcome or the outputs, and you are on your own to how to manage that particular. So you can even stop. We have invested in results-based payments which are output-based, and we have lost money into it also, but in the end of the day, the savings that you make, as somebody was talking about, the savings that you make because we want to reach that output and outcome is always an incentive for us to reach those outputs. This is just a slide which is, again, people can play different roles in whatever value chain or supply chain that they have. They can be investors, they can be implementers, or they can be verifiers also, independent verifiers. So just this last slide. In fact, there's a foundation also, Wish Foundation, which is started by somebody who started iGate. And Sunil Wadhwani is the person who started iGate. He has started this foundation. He has made people pledge $100 million, and he's looking for programs to implement. So there's a money already pledged and now needs to be mobilized through some basically projects which people like to work on. Thank you.